Hey guys, welcome to my guide on 61 Stormcaller. With the return of Hamanel in Tier 2, there are a lot of fights which require heavy AoE damage and therefore a few people playing dedicated AoE roles. For this, mages are prime candidates with 61 Stormcaller, and therefore if you're a DPS mage you should be able to play this spec. Let's start off with looking at the soul tree. So we take 61 points in Stormcaller, 5 in Harbinger taking Eldritch Knowledge, 10 in Necromancer, taking 5 in Death's Ally, and 5 in Fresh Graves. For the Masteries, we take Arcane Manipulation, Methodical Destruction, Mental Cynosure, Healing Exigency, and Arcane Shield. We will be using 4 macros in this spec. They are in the description below. Please copy them into your macro book and keybind them now. In addition to these 4 keybinds, we'll be keybinding Perfect Storm, Thundershock, Raging Storm, Storm Locust, Static Flux, Lightning Storm, Living Storm, and Icicle. For Karuul Alerts, I have the code in the description as well. Please copy that and import that into your Karuul Alerts and place the alerts on your UI where you're comfortable, and then we can actually start learning how we play the spec. To begin with, we're going to talk about the important AoE rotation. For this, make sure you have Tempest Armor on. We have 3 main mechanics in Stormcaller, which I'll go through individually. The first mechanic we deal with is our ground targeted AoEs. These together deal the most of our damage, and we want to make sure that these are up at all times. We have 2. The first is Eye of the Storm, and the second is Hailstorm. We use our macros, which we have in our description, and you should have put these in your macro books and keybind them. These place the ground targeted AoEs on the target which you have selected, which makes it a lot easier. These last 10 seconds, and you need to refresh them obviously after they fall off, and they're always your top priority. The slightly tricky thing about them is that we can't make a Karuul Alert for them because there's no way to track them on your UI. You can't see it ticking down. So you have to get used to how long 10 seconds is in terms of how long it is in your rotation. Or you can use the visual effect. As you can see the swirly. When that disappears, you know you need to refresh. Or you can also use the damage ticks to track when they run out. But just remember that you want to make sure that they're always ticking, and try not to cast them early either, because that's also bad. Also, we have the spell Perfect Storm. Now Perfect Storm is essentially our cooldown ability for Stormcaller. This applies both AoEs and casts and channels for 4 seconds, casting Lightning Storm. So essentially in one global cooldown we use 3 of our high damaging abilities. So that makes it really good. This will always be our preferred way of refreshing our AoEs. So you want to, when you're about to refresh your AoEs, you want to look, do I have Perfect Storm up? If the answer is yes, you want to use that. If the answer is no, you want to use the Eye of the Storm macros and the Hailstorm macros individually. The second mechanic we have in Stormcaller is our Electrified Stacks. These are generated by casting air damaging abilities and build up to 5 stacks. When we hit 5 stacks, we consume them by casting Lightning Field. Lightning Field does a lot of damage and also reduces the cooldown on our AoE abilities. So we want to be maximizing this as much as possible. The 2 ways in our rotation which we build up our stacks is by casting Lightning Arc and Raging Storm together, and also by channeling Lightning Storm for its full duration. Our Lightning Arc and Raging Storm combo is as follows. We cast Lightning Arc and then channel Raging Storm for 2 seconds and then interrupt it at 2 seconds with Lightning Field. And then with Lightning Storm, we simply channel it for the whole 4 seconds, and then cast Lightning Field at the end. The third mechanic we have is Static Flux. Now Static Flux is a damage buff on ourselves, which we obviously want to maintain almost 100% of the time. What makes it unique is that it grants us full stacks of Electrified. This essentially gives us an extra lightning field every 15 seconds and completes our rotation. Our rotation will essentially always go as follows. So we refresh our Static Flux, it gives us 5 stacks, we consume it immediately with Lightning Field, and then we go into Lightning Arc, Raging Storm, and then Lightning Field, into a full channel of Lightning Storm, and then Lightning Field, and then refresh, Lightning Field again, and then Lightning Arc, into Raging Storm. And this just goes round and round. As you saw there though, our Lightning Arc didn't come off cooldown quite in time. In this period of time, we would always have to refresh our AoEs. So Hailstorm and Eye of the Storm. Whether we refresh them with the macros, or if we refresh with Perfect Storm, this will always complete the rotation so that it fits perfectly, as it will always push back your Lightning Arc, so it will always be ready in time. Now that we know those 3 mechanics, we can start to piece together the full rotation. But before that, we need to add in 3 extra things. The first thing is Storm Locust. This is just a 60-second AoE debuff which you need to maintain on your target. Just refresh it after it falls off. The second is Living Storm. Just apply this as well onto your main target. However, you don't need to manage this at all as it gets refreshed by your AoE attacks. The third is Arcane Manipulation. This is just an off-global cooldown attack which you should just use on cooldown. Don't try to forget about this. You can macro this in if you want. So with those known and everything together, let's talk about the full rotation. So we need to keep in mind that our AoEs are our top priority and we want to keep these up all the time. Remember, these are Eye of the Storm and Hailstorm. And we preferably want to refresh it with Perfect Storm if we can. So when we need to refresh our AoEs, if we've seen it fall off or if we know it's 10 seconds have passed, we need to think to ourselves, do we have Perfect Storm up? If we do have Perfect Storm up, we use Perfect Storm and channel it for the 4 seconds. If we don't have Perfect Storm, we need to use our macros individually to refresh both Eye of the Storm and Hailstorm. Once we know our AoEs are up, we go back to consuming our Electrified Stacks, and if we don't have Electrified Stacks, we go to gaining them using Lightning Arc and Raging Storm together as our first priority. And then if we don't have Lightning Arc on cooldown, we use Lightning Storm instead. And that's all we do. And remember, with Static Flux, we want to keep that up all the time, and we want to always refresh it with 0 stacks and then use a Lightning Field as soon as we've refreshed it. Begin with casting Storm Locust on your target. Storm Locust doesn't actually cast any aggro, so you don't have to worry about ninja pulling at the start of the fight. Then we're going to go Static Flux into Living Storm, into Lightning Field, into Perfect Storm. Now we start our normal rotation of gaining Electrified Stacks and consuming them with Lightning Field, and then gaining and consuming, while also keeping an eye on our AoEs and refreshing them. So now I'm refreshing my AoEs, and then going back to Lightning Storm, and consuming them. Lightning Arc, Raging Storm, I need to refresh my AoEs now, but I'm going to do that after Static Flux, where I do my double Lightning Field. Now I've got Perfect Storm to use, so I'm going to use that. Then I need to refresh my AoEs again. I'm going to go into Lightning Arc, Raging Storm. Then into a Lightning Storm. And I'm going to have to refresh Storm Locust, and refresh my AoEs as well. We have Perfect Storm ready. So I'm going to use that next after this full channel. And that is an example how we play Stormcaller, and as you can see, it's doing quite nice damage. To finish off the guide, I want to show you how to single target in Stormcaller. To begin with, we want to turn on Storm Armor. And the main difference we have with the AoE rotation and single target rotation is how we treat our Electrified Stacks. With single target, we always want to keep our Electrified at 5. However, the only time we ever consume them is at the end of Static Flux. So that when there's 1 or 0 seconds left on Static Flux, we want to use Lightning Field and then immediately refresh it with Static Flux, keeping it at 5. What we want to be doing is, as normal, we want to keep up Storm Locust, Static Flux, Living Storm, and we want to use either Storm and Hailstorm, keeping them up at all times, and then keep Raging Storm on cooldown. And then when we have nothing else, we just spam Thundershock. So here we want to use Lightning Field and refresh Static Flux, refresh our AoEs, Hailstorm and either Storm, and then use Raging Storm, putting Arcane Manipulation over the cooldown, Lightning Field, Static Flux, AoEs. As you can see, it's not too difficult. You do sometimes run out of charge. If that's the case, then just delay your Either Storm a bit until you get more charge. So here we can go back to using Either Storm and Hailstorm again. Right, so that's what you do if the boss that you're targeting is stationary. If it's not stationary and constantly moving, you want to replace your AoEs, so you don't use Either Storm and you don't use Hailstorm, and instead you just use Icicle on cooldown. That's the only thing you do differently. That pretty much sums it up. Thank you for watching my guide. If you did like it, please put a like on the video, and also subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content from me. I'll be doing more mage guides and also be looking into the up and coming Prime list. Okay? See you guys around.